Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/IDOWorkHereLady and our first story of the day. Actually, I do work here, lady. And before we begin, a huge thank you to everyone who's subscribed to the channel and everyone who's hit the like button. Sup, Reddit? This happened about a week ago while I was in Texas for a wedding. First off, I'd like to note that, holy F, yes, everybody actually does own a gun in Texas. This is not actually relevant to the story. Second, the dialogue is only an approximation of what I remember. It won't be completely exact. Anyway, on to the story. I was helping the bride and groom set things up for the wedding, so my friend and I decided to split a hotel room for a couple of days. One afternoon, we ran out of crap to do, and with nothing good on TV, I lacked the foresight to bring my Roku with me, so I bit the bullet and headed over to Best Buy to buy a Chromecast. Now, at this same time, I was also trying on the clothes I was going to wear at the wedding. I wasn't wearing a full-on tux and bow tie when I left for Best Buy, but I did have on a dress shirt, black pants, and dress shoes. This apparently must have given me a managerial look, which is why the following events ensued. When I arrived at Best Buy, I asked a worker where they kept the Chromecasts and picked one up. Before heading to checkout, I went to the laptop section just to play around with the fancy new touchscreen laptops. A middle-aged woman with a box for expensive Bose? Can't remember headphones in her hands, said, "Can I speak to your manager?" Haircut stares at me, then clears her throat a couple of times. It doesn't dawn on me that she thinks I work here, so I look at her annoyed and ask, can I help you? She says, "Yes, about damn time. I need you to ring me up." Now, thinking back on it, I don't understand why she didn't just go to checkout. I just looked at her and told her, "I don't work here." She gets this look like I just insulted her entire life. Then to my shock, she literally starts effing yelling at me. "Sir, do you realize how unprofessional you're being? I'm going to report you to corporate if you don't help me." Now at this point, I'm seeing red, thinking, who the F are you, lady? Get the F out of my business. I was going to tell her to F off and leave, but I hatched a plan in my mind at the perfect moment. I tell her, "I apologize, ma'am. I do indeed work here. I realize what I did was extremely wrong and unprofessional. And if I can get your word that you will not call corporate, you can have those headphones completely free of charge." She literally effing sneers at me and says, "You men are all the same, only willing to help you if it's your butt on the line. Ridiculous." You do have my word, though. I then tell her that I'm going to call loss prevention and tell them to let her walk out the door with the headphones. Now at this point, her BS alarms should have gone off, but she clearly was not of sound mind. Anyway, I call up a fake bill and tell him to greenlight a woman with a box of Bose headphones and that it's a code B53 customer complaint. I don't know why I said that. I just wanted to throw in some jargon to make it look legit, which must have clearly worked. I hang up and the lady just huffs at me before leaving. At this point, I realize what I did was probably extremely illegal. So I went to a spot in the back where I could observe the ensuing crap storm without being called out by her. She walks to the exit, and when she tries to leave, the alarm goes off. I see an employee talking to her, and she gets mad. She tells him something, then continues to leave the store. Before she can leave, though, she's literally tackled by another employee, who I can only assume was LP. Two employees are escorting her to the back while she's kicking and screaming that she's being illegally detained. Everyone is staring. It's an absolute crap show. At this point, I realize it's best if I leave, so I put the Chromecast on a shelf and casually walked out with my head down. I then ran to my car and drove back to the hotel empty-handed. I told my friend what happened and he laughed hard as F. Then he went out and came back with the Chromecast. I do feel bad for the woman. I didn't actually know the employees would or even legally could tackle her like that and drag her off, but at the same time, she deserves it for being an effing C-word. You know, I don't think she's keeping her promise about not reporting you to corporate anymore. And our next story. I do work here, lady. My story is kind of the opposite of the usual stuff here. I hope that's okay. Now, this wasn't a huge scene with shouting and yelling and lanyard pulling, but it is a bit of a weird one. I think it sticks with me because of how much information was passed between us with so few words. That, and I'm a massive introvert, and I really don't like talking to randoms. I was at a hotel for a dead, boring corporate conference. I'm a cameraman, and by this point, I'd been in the room for about 6 hours, all ready for keynote rehearsals and the like. We had a few hours to kill before the conference proper starts, so I'd left the room, as had really everyone, to stretch my legs or go to the bog or something. Now, the crew always wears black, of course. I had my usual plain black polo and black cargos. I actually get quite a few questions on a lot of jobs, pretty much wherever I go, with people asking this and that, and I usually try to help them. I think the bathrooms are that way. Or explain I don't work here and I can't help. It's all quite amicable, nothing noteworthy. I find that if you're wearing black everything, no matter where you are, someone will ask you something. Like, sorry, I don't work here, but I am working here, you know? So everyone was on break and I'd left the room. I come back and try to open the doors to come back in and get my sandwiches. You know those super heavy doors that would much prefer to be closed than open? I tried to open the door by the handle and got one hand on the side of the door to pull it open when it suddenly slammed shut on my hand. I yanked my hand back, no real harm done, but it hurt like hell. As I'm cradling my hand and gearing up for round 2 with the door, it suddenly opens a crack, and this stern face pokes round the side and glares at me. I think she was the event manager from the corporate who was in charge of the workers in the room, but I was subcontracted, so I don't talk to people. Anyway, she glares right at me from behind the door, sort of like if some kids had knocked on the door of a witch's hut and the witch wasn't sure if she could get away with killing the kids if she let them in yet. So I'm outside the door, she's inside, she's glaring at me from the other side of the door. At first I think she wants to come out, but she doesn't move, shooting daggers at me the whole time. At least 5 seconds have passed in total silence, and no one has said anything yet. It doesn't sound like much, but being stared at in silence for 5 seconds by a stranger is very uncomfortable. I finally decide she's waiting for me to say something. Me. Hello. I venture I was pretty surprised that she looked so cross at me and didn't know what she wanted. Her. Hello. She affirms, still staring. I decide that this hasn't resolved the situation. She's been stock still the entire time, still looking me straight in the eye. At least another 5 seconds pass in silence, and I decide she's blocking the door intentionally. I didn't realize the door had a toll troll. Me. Can I come in? Her. No. She'd taken it like I'd asked the most stupid question I could think of. I was taken aback. Me. Oh. Several seconds pass again, and I don't leave because I'd really like to eat my sandwiches, which were left in a bag next to the camera. I'm just about to ask if I can get my lunch when she suddenly asks with surprising venom, clearly expecting a no. Are you one of the crew? Me. Yes. At this point, the black polo and cargos must have suddenly made sense amid the normal people at the hotel wearing suits. Her eyes go wide, she swings the door open. Her. Oh, sorry, yes, of course, come in. I, completely perplexed, mutter a thanks and go sit next to my camera and eat my sandwiches. While I admit it's not the most bombastic story, I guess it sticks with me because of how strange it was. It wasn't until later that I think I understood her side. From her perspective, she must have heard a knock on the door when the door slammed shut on my hand. She goes and opens the door to see who it is, and some scruffy kid standing there rubbing his hands together like everything is going according to his evil plan. Since this guy clearly knocked on the door, she waits to see what he wants. The kid stares at her and just says, "Hello?" Clearly, she thinks this kid is nuts. He then asks to come in, which of course he can't because only the crew for this event are allowed in. He says, "Oh," but doesn't go away. At this point, she notices he's wearing all black like the crew, and maybe she saw him earlier operating one of the huge expensive cameras. She lets him in when she confirms that he's one of the crew, but still, why was he so silent for so long? After all, he's the one who'd knocked on the door. What a weirdo. So yeah, rest of the day went smoothly, but I avoided her as best I could. Story's a bit long and rambling, but I felt the subtext of the whole short exchange kind of makes it, especially what she must have thought of me afterwards. So kind of complete opposite. I do work here, lady. And the third story with the original title, I do work here, lady. So this happened to me earlier in the week. I'm currently under 16, which is the age where you are legally allowed to work full-time where I live. However, given my school's permission, I'm allowed to work limited hours. I look and sound much younger than I am, and because of that, I'm not taken very seriously by some customers. I work at a fairly high-end grocery store. I usually stay in the back stocking the milk and other dairy items. However, sometimes I'm called to help elsewhere in the store if we're understaffed. I was moving some bread back to its rightful place when a woman huffed and puffed up to me. Woman: "What do you think you're doing, young man?" Me: "Huh? I'm not falling for your pranks. Where are your parents?" I'm sorry, what? "How dare you attempt to mess up this fine establishment with your horrible games?" What games? "How dare you, dressing up like an employee and moving everything around? Where's the manager?" At this point, I was nearly in tears, as I've never had someone yell at me while working before. A crowd has started to gather, and one of my coworkers and classmate, who has a deeper voice and looked older than he was, started running up to us. "What's going on here? This idiot is messing up your shelves and pretending to be one of you." "I'm sorry, ma'am, but he works here. He's fixing some shelves that someone else messed up." "Are you one of them too?" "Sorry? Are you one of these pranksters? I'll call the police on you." I'm sorry, no?" At this point, we both had radioed our supervisor, and after a long 30 seconds, he arrived. "Supervisor: What's going on here? These children are pretending to be employees and are messing up your shelves." "Those are my employees, and I don't appreciate you attempting to intimidate them. Please leave." She threw a pretty massive tantrum with your usual "I'm never coming here again" speech, but at that point, nobody really cared. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you liked it, and I'll see you soon.